Hello there guys, it's Joey, and today I wanted to talk about wolf magic. So I did the Raven magic video and the Raven magic spell as a result, and I felt good about that energy, that sharing of that information. And this week there's been a lot of wolf energy around, a lot of wolf imagery around, and I thought, you know what, I really want to continue that and do a wolf magic video. It's tied into my path working in a number of ways. It's related to the Morrigan, as we will see as we progress through, and it was the first ever spirit guide to make itself known to me, and they're still around. So I have personal sort of energy connections, experiences with some wolf magic. So I thought we would talk about that from all angles. So I'm going to start with a couple of quotes. The first one is the wolf prayer. Spirit of the wolf, you who wanders the wild lands, you who stalks in silent shadows, you who runs and leaps between the moss-covered trees, lend me your primal strength and the wisdom of your glowing eyes. Teach me to relentlessly track my desires and to stand in defense of those I love. Show me the hidden paths and the moonlit fields. Fierce spirit, walk with me in my solitude, howl with me in my joy, and guard me as I move forward through this world. And then there's a quote from Women of Astartru. This is more of a focus on the Nordic pantheon, although I think there is a cross between the Nordic and the Celtic in terms of values at the very least. The wolf was the very embodiment of raw primal force, and for whoever lost in the fight, the wolf was always the winner. They have a significant role in Northern mythology as well as many others. Women of Astartru. So I'm not going to be focusing on Nordic because although I've read quite a lot about the Nordic pantheon, it's not the pantheon, the path that I personally follow, and I don't think I could do it as much justice as I can with a Celtic sort of focus. So first and foremost, I think we're going to talk a little bit about the very basic ideas that get bandied about with regards to wolf imagery, and particularly within terms of the pagan path. We're going to have a look at some tarot and oracle cards in the process of this, because I think that really helps key into different ideas within the human psyche with regards to symbolism and imagery. I think it's a really potent and sort of accessible way to look at wolf imagery within the terms of our consciousness and how we connect to those energies. We're going to talk a bit about it from a Celtic slant, from the Morrigan, and then my experiences and feelings and going forward with it and things like that. Not necessarily in that order. And there will be a follow-up video for some magical work we can do. So when you look into the very sort of basic beginner books, as I did right at the beginning, and I just quickly recapped on some of them to see what they said about wolf totem, wolf imagery, wolf magic, blah blah blah. And it's very, very basic in a lot of books. And the idea is that they're spiritual teachers and guides, which they are, and they work as to do with family. Now, this idea of they are solely about family, to me, is detrimental to the idea of what a wolf energy actually is, because whilst there is, of course, the wolves in pack, in family, in community, and connecting with others energy, there is the flip side where there is the lone wolf archetype, the solitary archetype, the spiritual hermit almost, about going it alone and learning about whom you are and how you connect to the energies, and learning both from what it is to be part of something as well as who it is to be by yourself, to be solitary and part of something, part of a community. I think that wolf energy can actually be utilised to show you who you are in both those situations. There is also an energy, an element of wolf that connects to something far deeper within our human psyche, subconscious and history. So there is this primal force surrounded by wolf energy. The wolf is often, even in modern day consciousness, linked to who we are as primal human beings, with the earliest human beings coming together with wolves and in order to survive the wilderness. And of course then you get dogs further down the line with result of breeding and things. And that very first meeting of minds, of energies, must have been something to behold. That these incredibly ferocious, wild creatures, of which humans to this day are afraid of, in their deep fear in their psyche and their subconscious, which is something we'll touch on in a minute, coming together to form a family, to form a community, to form a symbiotic relationship of survival rather than enemies, if you like. They're intelligent, incredibly intelligent and insanely beautiful animals. I thought this was kind of apt because there's a lot of predictions and things about the fact that wolves are being exterminated by human beings, and how much of a crime against nature this is. I mean, it's a crime against nature when humans hunt any animal to extinction, of course. But there is this interlocking fear with wolf imagery, and I think this card from the Oracle of the Shapeshifters is going to sum up nicely something we will have all heard of as children, and that is Little Red Riding Hood. So Little Red Riding Hood is a story, a mythos, a mythology that comes from a little girl walking on her own in the woods and being a victim to a overly clever wolf that dresses up as her grandmother and eats her. And in the older version, I think it's the wood hunter cuts the wolf open, and I can't remember whether they survive inside the wolf or not in the original. But if you look back at that original story, at that sort of being swallowed up and then being released, it's to do with being consumed by your own fear. Let's have a look at what the card says itself. Like a wolf, you have fur and claws and brothers and sisters who will help you if you only so much as call on their energy. To find them, you must connect with the wolf within. It is time to travel on a new path, crossing a wood that seems cold and empty, but you will not be alone or helpless. You will not be prey. You have strong, unconventional allies. There's a time to stand your ground and face the enemy. That time has come, brave one. So there's a lot within this card itself and within that fairy tale, that myth. That is something that all children, I'm sure all children have heard of. Or at least heard some variant of it. Culturally worldwide there are threads within wolf stories, and it's to do with childlike innocence and fear and ferocity, and it could be seen as the fear of death within that fairy tale. This little girl goes into the woods all by herself to see her grandmother, and obviously grandmother crone energy to edging towards death and rebirth. To be honest, I think it really does sort of get connected to the archetype of fear and the primal animal within, our base instincts, our animal instincts, our ferocity, our wild primal self, which a lot of people are, of course, afraid of, and try to civilize that out as much as possible without looking for the balance of incorporating our wild selves. I actually came together with a little bit of wild energy last week, and it talks about my poem, the Wild Woman, Wild Wolf Woman, and it has almost, in a lot of pagan circles, gone 180 from being about the fear of the primal self to the embodiment of embracing what it is to be human, the wild energy within oneself, the wild places of the world, such as the woods, which are so inextricably linked with a lot of wolf imagery. Wolves being guides comes from the fact that they would be able to navigate the woods so easily, and humans may have picked up on this originally before they were forming a symbiotic relationship, and take note of how that wolves could track so well and follow them about, basically, to navigate the woods, to map things out. And as a result, the Celts sort of started to associate them with the other world because of this ability to navigate through the woods. And additionally, at that point, let's talk about the Celtic connections to the wolf from there. So I'm going to read a little bit from the Celtic Lore and Spellcraft of the Dark Goddess Invoking the Morrigan by Stephanie Woodfield. So the wolf is connected to the Morrigan and frequently is overlooked as a animal archetype, and it's really odd to me because the crow or raven and wolf has a symbiotic relationship with the wolf. Crows and or ravens follow wolves about in order to pick off their kill. The Celtic name for wolf meant wild dog. The Celts were known to crossbreed wolves and domestic dogs. Wolf teeth were worn as ornaments and charms. King Cormac was reared by a she-wolf and was often accompanied by a pack of wolves. There is a common misconception that wolves are large, dangerous animals. In reality, wolves are about the same size as an average dog, standing about the same height as a German shepherd. While groups of wolves can take down prey such as deer or elk, the majority of the wolf's diet is small prey, including rabbits and rodents. In the wild, wolves and ravens are often seen together. Ravens are known to follow wolves in order to scavenge meat from their next kill, and ravens will also eat wolf scat for nourishment. Yum. When the Morrigan attacked Cuchulainn on the battlefield, she appeared as the grey-red wolf. Bave was also said to appear on battlefields in the shape of a wolf. In connection to the Dark Goddess, the wolf, like the hound, became a guardian of the underworld. Wolves were also known to scavenge for food on battlefields. By consuming the flesh of the dead, they took on the warrior's essence and were believed to ferry the spirits of the dead to the other world. Call on the wolf as a guide during meditation and for protection. So they have a very definite connection to Bave, or the crone element of the Morrigan, and death. And that comes about from a very visual battlefield connection, as we've just discussed. The consuming of the dead, which is the same as the ravens, and that means taking on the essence of things. Celts believe that by consuming the flesh of the dead or whatever, they were taking on the energy, and they were therefore an animal connection to the other world. And that's very similar in mythos as Morrigan collecting heads, because their soul was said to reside in the head, and then she would ferry them to the other world, and it's part of the death cycle. Often a lot of wolf imagery comes up in winter as well. The wolf moon is in January, and that's because they are often seen to... maybe they're more visually seen in winter. It's easier to spot them because there's less foliage about. It's true of crows and wolves and things. And that sort of scavenger element comes in as well within winter, as in surviving through the hardships of winter when food was scarcer, which is something, of course, that we lose touch with a bit in modern society. So as we were talking about the wolf moon, it's actually nearly the next picture that I have picked from the Oracle of the Shapeshifters. Let's see what it says here. The wolf, the girl in the picture is one of the wolf clan. They are not the same, but they are kin. One is changing, which requires courage, again associated with a wolf, and commitment, and flourishes best when protected. The girl is about to turn, change form, or she may be holding the one who's about to change. You are always in this process of transformation, and when you have a guardian, you will be supported through the shifts of your many selves. The lunar aspect of this card is protective. The moon's fullness suggests a high tide of power, and this is traditionally a time of great change and metamorphosis. Psychic messages, dreamscapes, clarity. And then, of course, let's just move straight on to the next picture because I think they're interlinked, is the little wolf girl. And this is more about werewolf imagery, which is a whole video unto itself, so we will not go too much into depth here. But a girl who changes in the woods under the full moon, wild, undomesticated, but remains gentle, soulful, and true to her essence. Your solitude is your sanctuary. You are changing and showing more of your true self. These changes will be empowering. First, they will make you more vulnerable and open. Great magic. Do not be sorry for your solitude. I will defy boundaries, expectations, and labels others wish to place on me. For this moment, I stand alone, and that is all right. I am changing. I can be change without influence. Discover your authentic self. Connect with images, messages, and things of that nature. And this is touching on a number of different energies, which I feel is truly touched by wolf imagery. One is lunar energy, and transformation is another. And this shows the duality between the two cards of how the wolf is associated both with solitude and clan and community and group and family, which is why I think it is a disservice to see wolf imagery only in one or the other. I think it crosses the boundaries and shows the relationship, the interconnectedness between our soul journey and the need for community, as well as the need for solitude. Both of these images show the moon, the full moon, and the full moon is so connected with wolf energy, it's unreal. A lot of pictures will show the wolf howling at the full moon. It's a very, very common image within modern consciousness, in pagan terms and outside of pagan terms. And the werewolf is a modern interpretation of human and wolf combined into one, which we have so many modern takes on that it becomes a whole discussion within itself, why we look at werewolf imagery within horror movies, and then the sort of more modern interpretations of werewolves, where they've kind of taken on more of a protector role of late, a more benign role of late, than are more horrifying. And it kind of, these horror movies and other movies and TV shows and all the rest of it, they tend to look at the primal nature of human beings as well as the changing of human beings. You've got Teen Wolf, which is a very obvious reference to puberty and the transformation of a person going through puberty and growing up, and that transformation of who you are in terms of your primal wolf self, and then the sort of more domesticating thing that's going on. And you have all this imagery even in pagan circles, which is about women in a lot of the time, not all the time, but I've seen a lot of it, with regards to claiming your inner strength, your ferocity, and not allowing yourself to be squashed down, or tamed, or turned into a doormat, basically. That, to me, applies to both men and women, that you should seek to be your true self, and connect with your wild self in a sense which we get over the idea of being afraid of it, get over the idea of being afraid of personal transformation, get over the fear of getting in touch with our wild selves, and stop hunting that part of ourselves. Okay. There's also the divination and teacher element that comes into play here with the full moon. So the full moon is obviously a time for pagans of pure magic and personal transformation and divination. And so it's to do with, again, looking into that personal self, celebrating the divine female in balance with the divine male, and the animal self, which has become less acceptable for women to really interact with. And I think that's why there is the whole embracing of it on a large scale. There is the mystery element, the divination element, the magic element associated with wolf imagery, and this is why they're often given as A, protectors, and B, spiritual teachers. They can help us to navigate our own personal woods, as we talked about earlier. They have that connection to the other world and death, and therefore previous lives and psychic abilities and seeing across the veil. Okay. So we'll move on from that imagery to Muriel. Muriel Tarot is something else. Unfortunately, my other set didn't have any wolf imagery in, which I found a little bit disappointing. How should we go about this? Let's go with this one first. Oddly enough, all the blurb in the book about this one is about horses and not wolves. Now, it's to do with the fact that the Chariot card is to do with wolves as well, and she's actually sort of moved horses out for the large part and used wolves as sort of symbiotic with horses. It works in terms of Morrigan energy because the horse is also connected with the Morrigan. Now I will read you what it says, but again, I'm pre-warning you. The Seven of Wands was inspired by the white horse of the Chariot, the allegory of the human soul in Plato's Phaedrus. Plato described the human soul as having three parts: a white horse, a black horse, and a charioteer. So she's taken this image and moved horses out and put wolves in, and you'll see all three of them in a minute. The charioteer used reason to control and balance the two horses or opposing energy. The two horses, black and white, are akin to the black and white towers found in the iconography of tarot, a concept of duality that exists through philosophies and mythologies of the world. Morality, valour, goodness, the will of the soul, hero, master of the high self, civil-tempered. So this is the white wolf. And then in the Seven of Cups, you have the Black Wolf. Fear keeps you in step with the rest of society. Fear keeps you on the well-worn path of the dark forest. If you conquer your fear and step off the path, you may meet the wolf, which may just be the fierce aspect of your individuality and potential, which is just what we've been talking about. The Black Wolf is the dark horse of the Chariot, as described by Plato. William Blake, in his Marriage of Heaven and Hell, describes the duality of man as being reason and energy, and this dark horse, though wild and ill-bred, is the source of our passion and energy, even as the white horse is the civilized. One without the other leaves an ill-balanced chariot, without energy, passion, or spirit, or without control, morality, or goodness. The Black Wolf can be seen as the subconscious, the dark place within us, the moon, the eye that looks within, the guardian and master of our subconscious. Look to dreams and symbols to show the language of emotions within the subconscious. What first appears to be savage on closer inspection is in perfect harmony with the world. This part of us, the mundane earthy part, the part that evolved alongside the rest of the physical universe, is in perfect balance and contains vast knowledge. It is concerned with survival, love and sex, and bearing and raising children. Shadow self, dark side, wild, unimaginable, subconscious energy, passion. Right, okay, so before we go on to the next card, basically we're going to have a look at these two cards next to each other. So basically these are given in the Muriel Tarot to be the two sides of the self, the yin and the yang, the balance of ourselves between the unconscious, subconscious mind and the conscious mind, rationality and chaos, the deeper, darker side of the self, the animalistic side of the self, the primal raw energy and need, versus the civilizing self, the learned behavior, the morality, the echo of reason and logic and rationality in balance. So in balance, these two things create whom we are as a person, and as a result, the Muriel has the Chariot with the wolves. But before we move on to the Chariot, I'm going to just touch on the fact that the Muriel Tarot talks about the number 7, if I can just find it. At least I thought it did. I know it's given as a number of the shaman. Maybe it's within the... So the Chariot is also the number 7. So it has this symbiotic relationship. 7s have always been a magical, shamanistically profound number. It is the number of wandering planets visible to the naked eye, that is, the objects in the sky that move around the great serpentine ecliptic rather than the stationary disk of the stars, the Sun, the Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter and Saturn. The ancients built their mythologies around these gods in the skies. Talks again about the two sides of the self, the black and white, the tarot, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Is there anywhere else that says about 7? No. Okay. But there's this inner shaman connected with the number 7, and therefore the wolves has a direct link with this. And the idea of that everything has an energy, and the shaman communes with the energy of all things, and it's about learning and about discovering the deeper meanings within oneself and within the energies around us, within animals, within plant life, within the earth, within the spiritual realm, etc. And so on and so forth, basically. And the wolf does have that incredible link to shamanistic energy, to looking within ourselves with whom we are on all elements, the things we fear, the things that we are on the dark side, and then the more noble and regal side of ourselves, which comes about when we create this family, create this community, create this sense of self. So those things in balance are talked about within the Muriel in terms of the Chariot, which I think is probably one of my very favouriteest cards. Willing is not enough, we must do, goeth. Inside us we have been described as a chariot as far back as the thousands of years old Hindu Upanishads, the philosophies of Plato and the Jewish Merkaba, ideas that arose from the philosophies of Mesopotamia and the Middle East. Plato described the chariot as a metaphor for the soul in three parts, a black horse, a white horse, and the charioteer called reason that lashes them together and drives them. The white horse, beautiful, well-bred and civilized, ever goes up. The black horse, ill-bred, ill-tempered and hard to control, ever goes down. The chariot therefore must balance these energies within him or herself and drive them with great difficulty into the world of the gods, where he can hopefully, or she can hopefully, glimpse the ultimate truth, if only for a moment, before he or she once again loses control. Few ever achieve this, and according to Plato it takes many lifetimes. An old soul with an understanding of an artist or a philosopher to achieve this level of self-knowledge and mastery. To glimpse this ultimate truth, even for a moment, is enough to transform your soul, make you an initiate. Even after you crash, and as a human you will crash, you will be forever changed. Let's see if there's anything else I need to read from here. This chariot card was inspired by the myth of Odin and his wolves and ravens. The body charioteer is threefold: a black dark bottom, that part is covered in flesh and earth, the exposed soul in the heart, in the middle, and the radiant sun of the mind. The wolves are the fourfold earth, the cardinal directions, the four directions we can move our arms and legs. We interact with reality with the four elements. Now in control of the chariot of your own soul, you go with free will and your purpose in life. Keep an open heart and know that you are in control of your own journey. Which is nice. I love the Muriel Tarot. It's something else. So all these things then sort of seem to combine into this beginning to understand that there is a much larger picture to wolf energy than the idea of just family or just solitary. Or it's about the very nature of us discovering our own self, the balancing of all the energies, the yin and the yang, if you like, within our own souls, within our own path working. Now in my Raven video, talked about the fact that I worked with Labradorite as part of the Raven energy, and for wolf energy I have always preferred smoky quartz. It's one of the most effective grounding and anchoring stones. At the same time, it raises vibrations during meditation. So it has the duality of the wolf, to keep us grounded and protected at the same time as opening our consciousness and awareness. It has a strong protective link with the earth, which wolves do also, and the base chakras. It teaches you to leave behind anything that no longer serves you, relieves fear lifts depression and brings emotional calmness, and the wolf energy is all about confronting our primal fear, what we're afraid of, the primal self, those deeply entrenched psychological fears of things, and then overcoming that, releasing that, balancing the chariot, if you like. I also find that the connection to the higher vibrational self means that it's an incredible crystal in terms of spiritual learning and divination and psychic awareness. It's an amplifier of psychic ability, as well as being grounding and keeping you connected. It really does have that duality, that link between astral and earth, you know, grounding and protective at the same time as being uplifting and embracing the astral and the psychic abilities and things of that nature, raising your vibration to look into the world and start to try and come to an understanding of the world around you. So I wanted to include smoky quartz because I did that in the last video, and I think it's a really nice crystal for connecting to wolf energy, which I personally haven't seen given anywhere. It's come from my own experiences, and people were actually seeing wolf imagery in the smoky quartz when I actually used it as part of the wolf totem set. So that is it for wolf magic. I hope you enjoyed this video, and many blessings.